got to start with trade, especially because this is very much what investors are focused on, and has helped send stocks to record highs here this week. The fact that investors seem to be very keen on the idea or expecting some sort of trade truce between the U.S. and China, are they right to think that we get that?
Well, look, I think that we still have the highest effective rate we have in 100 years since Smoot-Hawley. I think there's a lot of people, when Liberation Day came, assumed that this is just part of the president's negotiating style, and these aren't going to be really implemented. And here we are many months later, and even as John recounts numbers that are less than expectation, it's still hundreds of millions, in one case, $1 billion hit to companies. So it's still pretty substantial. I do think that for China, as we head into next week, that China is looking for relief from the tariffs. They're looking for access to semiconductors. And for the United States, we're looking for access to rare earth minerals. We're looking for China to begin purchasing agricultural products. So you can see a contour of a deal here. But I think it's probably something that's going to be a little ways off. I think this weekend you'll see the more important work with Bessent and Jameson Greer meeting their counterparts in Malaysia and hopefully paving a way for a meeting with Trump and Xi. And I think that there'll probably be, as often as with Trump, probably an announcement of something that appears bigger than is reality. But for some of these harder issues, it's probably going to take a little bit of time before there's actual more significant relief on the tariffs. How
much should we juxtapose that to the fact that these trade talks with China with Canada, have been called off? We went to this week and there was a lot of optimism that we could be close to a deal.
Well, let's keep in mind the president announced 145% tariffs on China, then announced another 100% that he's even indicated himself may not happen on November 1st. So if you use that as an example, I think sometimes he can be a little more bluster on these. So I think with it, obviously Canada is an important trading partner, and it's probably more of a negotiation perspective and probably just being upset about the ad. But I do think it's remarkable that, Republicans have now moved to the point of Reagan as being the hero for our party and moving away from his positions and distancing themselves from Canada, that is pretty much a socialist, it has been a socialist economy, and they're embracing free trade. And we have a Republican administration that probably has more central planners in its administration than since any Democrat administration in decades.
Mark, taking it to this shutdown, which is ongoing, what are the polls telling you about which party likely voters blame for it? And what do you think are the risks to the economy? What kind of pressures we're likely to see come to bear as we head toward the end of the year?
John, great question. I think that this is more mixed than usual. I think traditionally Republicans have been the initiators of shutdowns, and voters have looked at them as such. In this case, I think that truly Democrats are the ones who have voted against the current government funding. But for a lot of voters, it's more mixed, and I think it's unclear in their minds. They say Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. And the reality is that, you need 60 votes in the Senate, but that's confusing for most voters. And I think that's led to the reality that you're at an impasse because neither side has really pushed to resolve this. I think for the administration, the president's kind of risen above this. He's striking hostage deals in the Middle East. He's dealing with new sanctions on Russia. He's going to China or going to Asia, potentially meeting with Xi. And so he's at a different level than kind of the dysfunction in Congress. So they're not incented to resolve this quickly. And I think for Democrats, they look at it and say, we're not entirely being blamed for this. And they think the closer they get to November 1st and the announcement of new Obamacare insurance premiums and the shock value of that, that they'll be in the driver's seat. So I really think that's going to be what drives the resolution here as you get closer to November 1st. So, and not just the insurance premiums, but actually the failure to provide funding for SNAP and for food stamps.